Since its launch in January, the Western Nigerian Security Network, codenamed Operation Amotekun, has continued to generate a lot of controversy from various quarters. Let me ask, sir, what was your initial reaction to the setup of this outfit, sir?
First of all, I was surprised about the whole brouhaha. And I didn't see the reason for it at all. But what is interesting about the whole thing is that it has shown very clearly that this is a country that lacks strategic thinkers, very, very clearly. The second thing is that it has also helped us to see some of the problems I've seen over 15, 20 years ago about the constitutional deficit with regards to security issues. Because if you look at our constitution and look at the various chapters, one or two chapters that deal with security, and compared to the ones like the one of South Africa and Zimbabwe, it is very obvious that those who put it together do not know what they are doing. And I have tried, like a Lone Ranger, to even get people to look at that part of the Constitution, to take care of the present and future safety and security threats. Nobody was interested. Nobody was interested. When Dr. Kayode Fayemi was in CDD, Center for Development and Democracy, as director, and initiated a series of workshops across the country with, there's a gentleman now who is the deputy chief of staff or so to the president of the Senate. I can't remember his name now. And he was in charge of that series of workshops. And they had one on security. That was about 15 years ago, and I pointed it out. Secondly, about that same period too, I had an opportunity of having a workshop with some members of the House there and civil society organizations. And that issue was also pointed out. Okay. Clean, which is an NGO that works on safety and security, I've done a series of workshops and seminars and written a lot of papers. Innocent Chukuma was then the executive director. Okay. And they are still continuing. But nobody takes all these things serious. And like human issues, it is when a crisis comes that we try to find a solution. Unlike the people that we copy, the Western countries, when they think ahead and structure themselves to be able to deal with the issues that will come, we don't think along that line. Okay. The third point is also true that politics dominate our lives. That is normal. But politics without thinkers is dangerous. And that's what we are seeing here today with respect to what's happening today. It's not only in security issues or safety issues. It's everywhere. There's no strategic thinking. Fourth point, people do not understand the difference between safety and security. It is very important. Now, policing is a safety issue, it's not a security issue. Military is for security issues. What is safety? If I live in my house and I can take care of any danger to me or my family, that is personal safety. If I live in the community and the community has no criminals, crime or anything, that is community safety. If we don't have safe communities all over Nigeria, the country is safe, the country is stable. That is why embassy will advise and say, see, this country is not safe enough. Oh, if you want to travel, take care of your safety. That is what safety. Safety is also, if you look at it, fire brigade. If fire, occurs, it's a safety issue. Okay? If, also for example, we have an epidemic or pandemic, it's a safety issue. So we misuse the word security all the time. And that's what put fears into the minds of everybody. Okay, but when you look at it from the point of safety issue, then, and therefore police, civil defense, fire brigade, NEMA, they are all safety issues for emergency and disaster because they affect our lives. But when it comes to security, when you say a place is secured, it's because you are expecting somebody to invade you or create problems for you from outside. That's the time you then use the word security. And that's why you form the military to make sure that people want to invade you from outside or people who fled from outside to cause problems for you, you take care of that problem. And that becomes violence and becomes deadly violence. Okay, now, so in the case of the network security, first of all, they are not calling the Operation Amotekun. They are just copying the police stupidly. Operation Amotekun cannot be there forever. Okay. They should have called it a name of network security that they have it. Okay. And then design and develop and activate various operations. Okay. Various operations. Operation Amotekun is not a name of an organization. It's an activation of an action against crime or something like that. I haven't got to this point. What you then find is this is that even the IG of police himself knows right from the word go. And again, clean right from the time of IGP Balogun. I've been talking about community policing for the past 20 years. And not only that, they've taken police officers to see where community policing exists, operate actively in the Western countries and in some parts of the world. So it is not anything new, okay, that they ought to know about. Now, but what's happening is that the politicians, I don't call them politicians anymore, they are politicians, have created a situation in which every step that is taken has become a North and South rivalry, which is stupid. So instead of looking at it from the national point of view, they look at it North-South. Okay. The other point also is that the network security has not become a precedent. It's not something unique or new. Anybody who tells you that it's unique or new is telling you a lie. Because you are old enough to remember Operation Bakassi in the Southeast at that time. It was operating across the whole of the Southeast. Bakassi boys. They were operating across the Southeast. It was only one state in the Southeast that legalized Bakassi. At the end of the day, because the whole thing was ill-prepared, not focused, the Bakassi boys became law on their own. But even then, the police was working with them until they were disbanded. Okay. But when they compare that to Hisbah police, organized to do what? To enforce religious laws. But Nigeria is a secular country. Okay. So if Isba exists, that's a precedent. So Bakassi was a bad president. Isba is a
It's a
good.
good president. That's
After Isba, Lagos Neighborhood Corps. The president himself acknowledged that neighborhood corps in Lagos State was good enough. Is good enough. Okay. And if you see the way that the whole thing was organized, they have not created any problem for anybody. They have not created. River State, under Governor Wike, has copied the same thing for the River State. Okay. Now, what has happened in the case of network security? That's why they call it a network. Because each state is contributing, like the neighborhood corps, to cut across the state boundaries. Okay. So what has happened now is that each state has created a neighborhood corps and created a multi-state command system, which is not like the multinational joint force that we are using in fighting Boko Haram and ISWAP with Chad, Niger, Benin, and so forth. That's the way the whole thing should have looked at. Okay. If the people in Abuja looked at it from that point of view, the other important thing is this, that, like I told you, because of the constitutional deficit, we in Nigeria, when something happens, instead of going back to the basic, we don't. You remember during the period of Obasanjo regime, and they created ISBA, and before that, Sharia system. Oh, everybody thought the country was going to turn upside down. But today, who is talking about Sharia anymore?
right.
Nobody's talking about Sharia anymore. And thanks to the wisdom of Obasanjo, at that time, his reaction was that let them have Sharia if they want to have Sharia. And that's why lately Wike declared that River State is a Christian state. It's a Christian state. Only that he hasn't created all Christian soldiers. So when you look at the whole thing, you will not discover that. I don't see the political brouhaha surrounding the whole issue.
General, you've actually highlighted a lot of issues. Let me first of all start with the fact that you say the country lacks strategic thinkers. I mean, you actually took a swipe at the Attorney General of the Federation Abubakar Malami, who actually declared the outfit as illegal. Why would you say that the Attorney General is suffering from strategic thinking deficit?
Yes, that is obvious now. Giving you all the precedents that I've laid out. So if he and the staff have sat down to study the precedents and look at the case of what they have submitted to him or whatever is on the ground in the Southwest, he should have been able to determine. Now, there are two aspects to it. The key important issue is this. Like I said, if they have looked at it from the point of safety, protection of people and property, deterrence of crime, if they look at it from that point of view, you won't be able to make that sort of statement. Two, if you look at it from the point of view of what neighborhood corps, his banco, what they are doing, you would have been able to say that. Three, he should have looked at it from the constitutional point of view and tell himself that, really, where does this thing fit in? Because such issues, if you want to solve the problem, you can solve it easily. How? By looking at your constitution and where does this thing fit in? If you have any problem, you pick up your phone and call the coordinator, who happens to be a lawyer to Akeredolu. Akeredolu is the chairman of the Southwest governors on this issue. He's a lawyer like him.
Exactly. If the fact that Governor Akeredolu is a lawyer, Governor Akeredolu himself should have known that by law, there are certain things that have to be put into a place before you set up an outfit like that. For example, based on his argument, he said there is no law establishing Amotekun, and there is no framework for office operation. As a matter of fact, nobody knows what arms the operatives will carry. So, I mean, these are not ironed out legally.
Yes, but what I'm trying to say is this: is that from the point of view
Of safety.
at the federal level,
Exactly, sir.
what you need to look at, if you take a case before a judge will look at precedents.
That's right.
Okay? So if there's a precedent, you look at what is on the ground and the difference between the precedents and what's on the ground. Two, it was one Lord Justice in England who said a long time ago, you don't give judgment without looking at social conditions and everything that's existing at that particular time in which that crime took place or that action took place and when you are passing your judgment. So you must look at social environment that you're operating in. Okay. So the first question that should have been asked is that, is it necessary to have that organization? If it's yes. Two, is it legitimate?
That's right.
Do people want it? So if the rationale is yes and there's legitimacy, what is legal? If you are elected today as a president and people don't like you, you are an illegitimate president.
That's right.
And haven't you seen protests all over the world? Exactly. People were elected legally, but protests have been moved there because it has been illegitimate. Now coming to Akeredolu, I am ashamed of him. Very much ashamed of him. Okay. Why I'm ashamed of him is this: is that as a lawyer, you should know what was important, indispensable, and inevitable to do. You should have known. And should have been able to advise all his colleagues. Two, Kade Fayemi has a PhD. He wrote his thesis on security issues. One is surprised. One is surprised that he has that knowledge, coupled with Akeredolu, in not being able to put together a watertight organization that nobody can question. So those two people are responsible for the situation in which we are in. Honestly, they are responsible for the situation in which we are in today. And it shouldn't have been at all.
No,
that's what I'm telling you, the strategic thinking deficit is all over the place.
General, let's also get your perspective on this. Some have actually looked at, most of those who are against this outfit have actually questioned its operation, considering the fact that it could turn out to be a disaster. You mentioned precedents the other time, looking at what happened with the Bakassi boys in the southeastern part of the country. And part of the reason why people are afraid about that, it could turn out to be, there is a likelihood of ethnic bigots or people-minded people and politicians taking over what could have been the responsibility of constituted governments. Are these fears,
No, that one is a very big mistake. It's a very mistake. Again, Nigeria is not the only place where you have state and local government police.
You are also credited to have said that it is a foundation for state police.
Yes, but the point is this: is that I don't see why anybody is afraid of what's happening. Okay. And if people who are afraid do not have something at the back of their mind, they do not need to be afraid. Okay. They must have something at the back of their mind. Okay. Secondly, there are people who are against the name they call it structuring and amendment of the constitution. They are against it. So if there's any move along that line, that scares them. Why should scare them? I do not know. Because when the Northerners created Sharia, did everybody not think that we are going to divide Nigeria into two? What has happened? Nothing. Okay, nothing. Okay, so some people cannot act in a way, in a religious way, in a secular country, and then people who are looking after their safety, then you get scared. Now, one thing that's important is this, to me, is that the network security must not carry arms. They must not carry arms. If they did not carry arms, they fit into all these presidencies that I'm talking about. They must not carry arms in any form. In fact, some people have brought up jokes about using
the local
the
charms.
Nigerian, arms and things like that, native arms and like that. If it works, yes. But there are some other security gadgets that are non-netter that they can use. From torchlight to baiting. There are some baitings, if you use it to touch somebody, that person will freeze. If you point that torchlight into people's eye or even any part of the body, the part of the body become dead. So the point that there are so many security gadgets that they can be used without carrying arms at all. But what is key to me is this. Crime occurs where there's no good crime intelligence.
Good. Sure.
So intelligence can only be gathered by the people living in the same area, with the same culture, in the same community.
General, before we get to the issue of intelligence gathering, let me first of all get your perspective or two on this issue that considering the spate of insecurity, especially in the Southwest, you talk about kidnappings, cyber stalking, cyber crimes and ritual killings that has taken place in the Southwest in recent time. And the fact that Nigerians themselves have lost confidence in the Nigerian police and the state security apparatus. Shouldn't this just even bring about the legitimacy of this kind of an operation? Put an end to the spate of killings that has been witnessed in some of the regions?
See, if all these killings are done by the Yoruba people, and Yoruba people have set up a system to check themselves, what is bad in that? Therefore, they've taken the weight of the federal, which is what's happening all over the world. Safety is bottom up. Safety is bottom up. You have to take care of your own safety from the bottom up. Security is top down, in which you have to defend the whole territory of Nigeria. So, if the Southwesterners have now created a safety organization, so what is the problem with the federal? Like I said, don't carry arms. Okay. 2, what is important, what the federal government should be thinking about is this, is that the Inspector General of Police that we have now, there should be no need for any IGP for federal police, no need for any federal police anymore. What we have is an IGP that will be responsible for common standards of training, at least some basic organizational structure, okay, code of conduct, and 3, monitoring, evaluation, and feedback of all these safety organizations that have been set up by the various states, by the various zones. That's what they need to do. In fact, like the Southeasterners have said, before the Southwest started their network security, they were thinking about it. But they were scared. Okay. That's why they did not. And of course, they had the problem of IPOB. They did not know what to do with it. So that's what this. So the network security is not IPOB. And the network security is not OPC of the past. Remember, OPC of the past said they were defending Oduduwa land and things like that. They are not, it is not.
But OPC is part of the security.
Yes. Now, but since that time of OPC, haven't they got contract from Jonathan to look after pipeline security? And what has happened after that now? They keep busting the pipeline. Now, pipeline security is the job of the civil defense. This emergency and disaster, infrastructure protection, and all those things are the job of civil defense. Again, are they doing it? Are they doing it? So you created people, you put people in uniform at the federal level, and there are still problems all over the place. That's the point. I mean, this pipeline at
Ablegba.
yes, Abule,
It was
nearly every 3 months. What is the civil defense in Lagos doing? Or civil defense in Lagos, since you told OPC not to do it anymore. So sometimes you don't understand. That was why I was saying that on the part of AG, there's some thinking that ought to have gone, some reflection. You just came out PAB, which means it was politically motivated, not legally motivated, not professionally motivated.
So, General, now you've actually enumerated on a lot of things, and the question still remains: how does the Southwest governors reconcile this with the federal government?
They have taken steps. Oshibajo is calling a meeting with all the Southwest governors.
Do you see anything coming out of that?
Huh?
Do you see anything coming out of that?
But Oshibajo is a constitutional lawyer. Akeredolu is there, Kayode Fayemi, and all of them, they go there. And the president himself is coming back on Friday. Okay. But you see, we have a funny constitution because we copied the Americans. And the Americans are regretting that constitution, in which the president had become a demigod. He had to solve all the problems. So everything that happens in Nigeria, everybody waits for the president. Our institutions are not working, which we were sure is working. So instead of strengthening our institution, we wait for one single man. We wait for one single man, who too realizes that he's not strong enough and he cannot play God. So he needs some people around him, kitchen cabinet, who will tell him what to do. And that's what happens. Okay. And to me, in order to be able to resolve the issue, is this and that. People should sit down, especially at the federal level, and say that for you, we are not asking you not to set up your safety organization. But please understand that, for example, you cannot carry arms, and so on and so forth. So they said that the condition. But it is time now to disband the federal police and set up the sort of structure of IGP for evaluation, monitoring, training, and things like that. 2, all the other people, every organization that is set up, they must send them to the police training school. You know, you have this type of police people that are trained by the policemen for companies. And they wear the police uniform, but they don't have the same powers that the police have. They've been training them, so police can do the same thing for safety organization of various states. Because I read that Delta State too is trying to set up the same type of organization. So have standard training school for them. In many states now, there are police training schools. They can be trained there. Okay. 2, they need laws to bind them. And they need laws for discipline for that organization. 3, they should not copy the bad habits of the police, setting up roadblocks, collecting 100 naira and things like that. Importantly, since they don't carry arms, buy them security gadgets like some of the things that I've described, and then there should be coordination with the special desires of the police who carry arms, who have vehicles. So what will now happen is this: that if there's any danger, SAR is on call to them, and then now if there happens that SARS refuse to cooperate with them, then they raise that issue with the federal government and say, see what's happening now. How do we continue this way? Okay, so Lagos State are proven to be a model. They have LASMA for traffic. They are working well with other agencies. They have the neighborhood call. They are working with other agencies. So where are the problems, sir? Where are the problems?
General, thank you very much for your insightful analysis. We really appreciate the time.